Hello, how is everyone?
Woo!
Welcome, thank you for coming. Hopefully we're going to have a good time today. We've got 25 minutes, we're going to get started right away. My name is David Betancourt. I'm a comic book culture reporter at the Washington Post, also a DC native, so this is an event that I'm very familiar with. We're here today to be talking with Alan Gratz. Alan is the author of a very cool graphic novel that I had the pleasure of reading this week called Captain America: The Ghost Army. This is a graphic novel. It was written by Alan Gratz, and it was illustrated by Brent Schoonover, who is not here with us, but Alan is going to be talking to us about the book. Alan, my first question for you. Now, one thing Alan and I have in common, besides being devilishly handsome and wearing Captain America shirts, is that we've both written for Marvel. The Ghost Army is Alan's first Marvel project. Alan is a frequent writer of historical fiction, but this is his first foray into Marvel. I myself have written my first book, The Avengers Assembled, which will be in stores August 29th. I'm also a writer for Marvel Comics. I write frequently for a character you may have heard of named Miles Morales.
Maybe heard of him, maybe, yeah.
Slightly popular guy. Yeah. But this is all about Captain America today, Mr. Steve Rogers. I want to make it very clear this is a Captain America conversation. That's why we're wearing the shirts. Alan, as someone who has frequently written historical fiction, when it came time to your first chance to write for Marvel, because you're well known in the writing community, you were allowed to take your pick of characters. Why did you pick Captain America?
Yeah, when I saw that Scholastic and Marvel were doing this partnership where they were doing books for middle grade readers using Marvel characters. So they had a Miles Morales Spider-Man, they had a Ms. Marvel, they had a Shuri from Black Panther. And I saw these and I was like, wait a minute, I already do historical fiction for Scholastic. How can I get in on this? Because I'm a huge Marvel fan. And so I started talking to some folks and they said, well, what character do you want to do? And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many great characters. But they were also trying to skew them younger. They were trying to make sure that these were stories about these heroes when they were young, when they were middle schoolers or when they were teenagers. And so that took some of the people out of the running. Like Iron Man doesn't get his suit until he's an adult, right? So I could write about him, but then he wouldn't be like Iron Man, right? So I kept thinking, well, there's some characters that would have been around in the past, you know, like who had their powers as kids. But then I thought, wait a minute, I already write a lot of books about World War II. And Captain America famously served in World War II. What if I wrote a story about young Captain America, like right after he gets the super soldier serum as a teenager fighting in World War II? And because, of course, the thing is that he gets that when he's like 18 years old, and he looks like a grown man.
A lot of people don't realize that,
right.
How young he is.
Right.
Like him and Bucky, who was also in this story.
Yeah.
Bucky, of course, is his teenage sidekick, but they're really the same age.
They're about the same age, and the thing is that he just looks like a grown man because he got that super soldier serum.
Because Buffy was probably buffer than Steve before he got the serum.
Just about, yeah.
So, you know, Buffy's probably like, hey, where's my needle? What's going on?
So I know, right? And that's part of the story is that they were going to use it on other people, and then it gets sabotaged, and Cap's the only person who gets it, and so he becomes this solo hero. But yeah, Bucky is a big part of this story too, and I know you're a big Bucky fan too.
Huge Bucky fan. I'm a big sidekick guy, and that kind of leads into the first thing I want to ask you before I get to Bucky is, there's kind of a double meaning to this title, the Ghost Army. Now, having read this graphic novel, I can say there is this kind of like zombie ghost-like army that kind of comes up from the dead and is fighting against Captain America and the American forces. But the Ghost Army actually has a double meaning historically when it comes to American history. Can you get into that?
Yeah, sure. So there was always this part of World War II that I really wanted to get into a novel, but I didn't have a good way in because it was all adults. It was all adult soldiers who were doing it. So during World War II, when people were drafted, they would have to list what they were good at and what skills they had and what their previous job was. So the Army got this sort of genius idea to pull out a lot of creative people who'd been drafted. And they took people who were writers. They took people who were artists. They took people who were musicians or sound engineers. They took advertising executives. They took stage magicians. And they put them into a group called the Ghost Army. It was a real U.S. Army unit, and their job was to trick the enemy. Their job was to fool the Nazis in particular, because this unit was stationed in the European theater, to fool the Nazis into thinking that we had more troops in one place than we did, or that we were invading in a place that we weren't invading in. And they did all kinds of really amazing stuff. Like
Kind of like a military play-action fake.
Right, right. I mean, it was. They were supposed to fake everybody out. They made inflatable tanks out of canvas that they would blow up with big fans, and they would leave the inflatable tanks out in the field. Now, if you walked up to them, you'd realize it's a big balloon.
It's the effect they had from a distance,
Right, right. And so if you were flying a spy plane over and you were trying to figure out where the U.S. Army had tanks, you'd see a whole bunch of tanks in the field, and you'd think, oh my gosh, they've got a huge force here. And then they would just deflate the tanks.
You're thinking they're locked and loaded and ready to go.
Right, right. They would record the sound effects of armies on the move, and then they would drive by villages with huge speakers on the top of their trucks, playing the sounds of armies marching to make the local villagers think that there was an army moving by. And then the spies in the village would be like, oh, the American army is here. They made fake airplanes. At D-Day, they dropped dummies on the wrong beaches. They dropped dummy paratroopers that had tape decks in them, big reel-to-reel tape decks that had sound effects of machine gun fire, and they dropped them on beaches where we were not invading, so the Nazis would think, oh, that's where the invasion's coming, and spread their forces thinner. So this was a real army unit, the Ghost Army, and I loved this story, and I wanted to get it into something. I thought, oh, what if I have Cap and Bucky fighting alongside the Ghost Army? And then, of course, because it's a comic book, I got to put real ghosts in it too. So there's two ghosts. There's the actual, there's the literal ghost army, and then the literal ghosts that rise from the ground as a ghost army.
And one thing you get into in the story, one of my favorite parts, is when Cap meets not the scary ghost army, but the U.S. military ghost army.
Right.
They're surprised at how young the soldiers are.
Yeah, so a lot of these guys were super young. They were right out of middle school or junior high. You had to be technically 18 to join the Army, but really toward the end of the war, the Army and the Navy were both kind of looking the other way at people's ages, trying to get as many people to the front as they could. So Cap himself is 18 years old when he joins up and gets the super soldier serum. And, when I was 18, I was in high school. I was, I was not doing anything as serious as fighting Nazis in World War II, but a lot of that generation were just like Cap. They were drafted as soon as they became 18 or joined as soon as they became 18 and went to fight. They were kids.
What would you say is the age range of this book?
Oh, I totally wrote this for like middle school. So if you're like ages like 8 and up, or it really depends on, of course, what your reading level is and what kind of stuff you like to read. But I totally wrote it for that middle school audience. And Bucky was a way into that. So Bucky is still really in what I would call junior high, maybe like an 8th grader. And the thing about Bucky is that a lot of people know the Bucky Barnes character from the movies, where he's
Captain America Winter Soldier.
Right, yeah. Where he's the same age as Cap. But in the comic books, he's a little bit younger even. He's almost like a younger brother. And that was a way into the story for younger kids. That's the whole reason that he was a kid sidekick back when he was first written in the 1930s and 40s.
Now, very much so this is for middle school and up. I can say as a 43-year-old man, I highly enjoyed this. So if you're older than middle school, feel free to pick this up and read it as well, especially if you, like me, love Captain America and love... I myself, as we talked previously about a week ago before this event, and I let you know, I'm a Bucky guy. I've always been the sidekicks guy. I know this is a Marvel thing, but on the DC side, I'm a big Robin the Boy Wonder fan. But I always loved that Bucky was kind of like Captain America's Robin, his sidekick, but also fascinated by the fact that really they're the same age. Like you said, Cap's 18, Bucky's maybe 15, 16. So if you don't know Bucky Barnes' story, his mother dies, and then his dad is solo parenting him on an army base. His dad dies in an accident, a military training accident, and then Bucky basically grows up on a military base. He says he doesn't want to be a ward of the state. He wants to stay on the military base where he's basically spent his whole life. So he kind of unwillingly becomes a U.S. super soldier because he's been trained from childhood by some of the best military minds there are, which made that combination with Captain America so special.
Yeah.
But there's really a point in the book where Bucky kind of takes a turn, and he becomes kind of the center of the
lead.
book. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I wanted to make sure of was that if Bucky was going to be in the book, that he had a huge central role to play. That he wasn't just the sidekick who was doing the side job. I kind of looked at it as though Cap is the guy who knocks the front door down, right? Like when Cap wants to go into a place, he kicks the door down. I mean, the guy's wearing the U.S. flag as a uniform.
Not very stealthy.
Not very stealthy, right? So he's not exactly going to be skulking about in a castle, but when they need to go and investigate a castle, but don't want to let the villain know that they're doing some recon, it's Bucky that goes in, and Cap doesn't even go in.
Bucky's the dirty work guy.
Yeah, he's like the what do they call it? The spec ops kind of guy. I mean, he's going in and he's doing the recon. He's sneaky, and he even tells somebody in the book, I do the stuff that Cap can't do. Or isn't good at. And there are things that Cap's not good at. Sneaking around is not a Cap thing.
No, it's against his nature. He's too much of a goody-goody.
He's too much of a goody, right? He's so honest.
He
I
wants
don't know how he would
He wants to
lie.
see you punch him in the face.
Right,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, he doesn't want to even hit you from behind. That's
No,
right.
no,
He's
no.
going to tap you on the shoulder, wait till you turn around, and then punch you out, right?
So we've got about 15 minutes. I want to ask you one more question before we turn it to the crowd
Yeah,
in case
yeah.
we have any questions for the crowd. But one thing I really enjoyed about this story is there are a lot of Easter eggs in here, and you had an opportunity to bring in not just people from Captain America's universe, but other universes as well. Did Marvel give you full bounty to be able to just dive in and use whatever Marvel characters you want? Because there are a lot of cameos in here.
Right, yeah, thanks for noticing. And if you are a Marvel fan as an adult or as a kid, you're going to see a ton of references in this. Marvel was a ton of fun to work with. When I first met with them, they said, look, you can't use anything from the movies because we want it all to be based on the comics. And I said, well, that is not a problem because I have read your comic books all my life. So the research is done. And then they said, okay, great. So, and I said, well, what can I use in the book? Can I pull characters from other, because Cap's got the Red Skull and he's got his famous villains and things. But I was like, can I pull from other books and other stories? And they're like, oh yeah, go to town. They said, pull in as many references and cameos as you want because they really want this to be sort of an entryway into the comic books that they wrote for adults, for kids.
Not just a bridge to Captain America, but to other comics as well.
Right, to sort of introduce this Marvel world. So I went to Doctor Strange, for example, and got my villain from the Doctor Strange universe. And so if you read the book, you'll recognize somebody who has appeared in movies and is also a very famous character in the Doctor Strange books. I also, because this is in Eastern Europe, I pull in the map of Eastern Europe, which includes Latveria, which is where Doctor Doom is from. We don't see Doctor Doom in this, but I had a lot of fun.
He's lurking around somewhere.
He's somewhere. His family.
He's on the map.
His family is, they're on the map. And, I think I also put like Transylvania in there, like Count Dracula's castle is not in the book, but on the map.
It's a pretty dangerous map.
It's a very dangerous area of the world, really. And then there's this mountain called Wundagore Mountain, which has this famous history in Marvel where all kinds of mysterious things have happened and maybe has a connection to Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, and her family, who might just make some cameos in there. So I had a ton of fun pulling in lots of Marvel references. And so there'll be Easter eggs. But look, if you don't know Marvel, you don't need to know anything about Marvel to come into it. And that was one of the other things that I set out to do with this, was that if this is the very first Marvel comic book you've ever read, you're not going to be lost. It's not like you're going to be like, who are these people? Why do I care about them? I tried to make sure that I introduced everybody and gave them all believable motivations in the story. And then if you're also a Marvel fan, there's also a little bit of extra in-jokes for you.
So the remaining time, we'd like to open it up to you guys if anyone has any questions.
We got some down here. How about down here? Holler it out loud so we can hear you. Speak up so we can hear you. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
come on up to the microphone. It's going.
Oh, okay, it's on. So when you wrote this book, I've read a lot of your books.
Thank you.
Like a lot of your World War II books, just like pretty much a lot of your books.
Cool.
Refugee, like Grenade Allies.
He likes you already.
Yeah, you're my number one fan. I appreciate it.
And you're an amazing writer. And
Keep going. I love it.
Questions are over after this.
That's
kid
it.
Right here.
No, go ahead. We're just kidding with you.
And this Captain America graphic novel, it seems like so out of like your writing zone.
Yeah.
Like all I've ever seen you write.
It's a very adult
Also,
question.
I know. I like
My
it.
favorite book is written by you. Ban this book.
Thank
love
you.
the book.
Thank you.
But this graphic novel, it seems like so much out of like what type of stuff you write. So
Like, how did I do that? How did I write something that was different and try and
yeah,
fit
how
it in?
did you incorporate your normal writing style, like historical fiction? How did you take that, the most interesting parts of that, put it into this graphic novel that is action-packed, I'm sure, knowing you?
Awesome.
First,
Thank
let's have
you.
a round of applause
Yeah,
for
I
that
know,
question.
great question.
Wow.
Thank you.
They should have had that kid moderate, not
I know,
me.
right? You're falling down on your job. No, it's a great question, and thank you. So one of the big things for me with this was I really wanted it to be a combination of World War II history and Marvel history. So in addition to reading a bunch of Marvel comics to come up with backstory for those characters, I was also reading a lot about World War II history. So I tried to make it a combination, you're right, of both of the things that I do, which is write about real historical events, but this time I got to drop, instead of my own fictional character into it, I got to drop Captain America into it, which was pretty cool. So all the stuff about the Ghost Army that I told you about, that we wrote, that's in here, it's all true. About the U.S. Ghost Army, not the ghosts that come back from the dead.
Not the Phantasm.
Go for it.
I'm just curious on what is your favorite like comic book, like
Oh.
Marvel, DC, or just
Oh my gosh.
classic
That's a
question.
great question. Do you have one? We were just talking before about our mutual love for The Flash.
Mutual Love of the
I know
Flash.
it's not a Marvel property.
We both grew up on Mark Waid's Flash. Mark
Yeah.
Waid is my favorite writer ever, and the guy who inspired me to want to be a writer when I was 14 years old. I grew up, when I was your guys' age, I was reading Chris Claremont and Jim Lee's X-Men running in the
Right.
1990s. That was pretty much, for our age group, those guys were rock stars, and
Yeah.
those were the comics everyone was reading.
I love the Ms. Marvel, the Kamala Khan from G. Willow Wilson. That's amazing stuff. I really like Lumberjanes, which was
Lumberjanes is good.
another non-Marvel one, but and then The Flash has always been a big book for me.
Now, if you want to ask me my favorite comic character ever,
Yeah.
it's Miles Morales. I had
Yeah, listen, he's got it.
my father is Puerto Rican, my mother's African American, so to see a hero that is literally takes his mask off and is me, that's something I thought I'd never see. So that character means a lot to me.
And mine is Hulk because I like to smash stuff.
my favorite. My favorite's Long Halloween by
Jeff
Oh,
Loeb.
yeah, Jeff Loeb,
and
yeah.
Tim Sale.
Yeah. Listen, we could sit here and talk comics.
Wow,
all
your
day,
parents
I
let you
know.
read that? No, I'm kidding.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
So I've
Oh,
heard a lot-
PSG, look at this guy.
I know, right?
Is that Mbappe? Let me see.
No, it's Messi.
Messi.
Oh,
Oh, I don't know if you
Yeah, I
heard,
don't
but
think
he's in
he plays
America
there
now.
anymore, does he?
They changed.
What's your
We're
question,
just
buddy?
messing with you. Go ahead.
So usually I've read a lot of your books. So usually you write chapter books, and this one's a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Something new. Never seen you write it before. Why did you change your mind?
Yeah.
But
No.
it is still broken up into chapters, obviously not as many.
It does
but like,
have chapters.
What's that, 6 chapters in this?
8.
8, okay.
Yeah, but you're right, it's different. And it was really interesting to write this as a graphic novel script and not a novel. Because in a novel, if I'm writing a paragraph and I need to say that somebody's out in the snow, and I want to talk about snow, I don't want to use the word snow 3 or 4 times in the paragraph. I try to use different words, but there's not a lot of words for snow. Not at least in the English language. So, like in a comic book, I can just say to the artist, man, there's a ton of snow everywhere. And that's not the best writing, but it doesn't matter because you guys aren't going to read that part. All I have to worry about is the
But
dialogue.
they'll see it.
Yeah, so you'll see it because Brent, who's this amazing artist that I worked with, got to draw all of that. And so I would just say like, oh, Brent, draw these ghosts, and they have that like Scooby-Doo green glow around them, and he
Super
just,
important to signify that it's a
right,
ghost.
it's that Scooby-Doo glow, and he would make it happen. And so it was really freeing. Some parts of it are faster because you can just say, oh, like I could even say like, like that machine in that one movie, make it look like that. And he can do that. And I don't have to really worry about how I said it. But in a novel, I have to make sure all those words are very pretty. So it was freeing in that sense, and it made me focus more on action and dialogue, which was pretty cool. So I learned a lot about the way I write my prose novels from writing a graphic novel. And I can also tell you guys that I've got more graphic novels coming. So I don't know about Cap. I'm hoping to write more Cap. We'll see. But we're doing a refugee graphic novel. That one's written, and it is being drawn right now. I'm very excited about that. And I'm currently working on another original one, which I can't talk about yet. But got it. So Got more on the way because I loved writing them so much. Let's get to some more questions before we have to get out of here.
Speaking of your book, Refugee, in your book, you used 3 very seemingly different stories of 3 kids to convey that history is repeating. Do you think that it's important that more countries adapt their policies to not repeat the past in current treatment of refugees?
Woo, yeah. Good question and good, yeah. Yeah. And listen, I segued into that. That's amazing. So great question, thank you. Yes, absolutely. So I wrote Refugee at a time when, well, I'll tell you right now, there are more refugees in the world right now than at any time in human history, right? And there's not a world war going on. During World War II, most of Europe was displaced by a war. And yet we still today have more refugees in the world than at any time in human history. Yes, I wrote Refugee because I wanted to say, look at these stories of the past and the present. If we keep making the same mistakes that we made yesterday, then tomorrow, mañana, is going to be the same as yesterday. And we have to make changes. And I'm hoping that that book, it sounds like it did with you, I hope that that book opens hearts and minds to the people who read it, so that this young generation that's coming up will make those changes that our generations that came before haven't. We haven't learned the lessons of the past.
So
I hope that you guys will. I know, because we keep dropping the ball.
Do we have
That's
time for
awesome.
another question?
Let's do it.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Okay, so about the ghost army thing,
Yeah.
the actual ghosts, are they like already like buried, just random people, or are they like soldiers that just randomly fell on the field and then they get up and they're like, oh, I'm alive?
They're both. They're both. That's a great question. So my idea is that this villain, he creates this ghost machine. And the first time he cranks it up, the most immediate soldiers who died that day in a battle, they come back to life as ghosts. And then when he tweaks it and he makes it go farther, they think that he's making it go farther in a larger area. And he says, no, I'm going farther back in time. And now, instead of just World War II soldiers that are resurrected, World War I soldiers are coming back from the same place. And it's me getting back a little bit into that stuff about the past, right? That we keep making the same mistakes. World War I was fought in Europe. It was supposed to be the war that ended all wars. And guess what? It didn't. And so when he cranks up that ghost machine, we start seeing soldiers from the last time we did this show up. So it's both of them. That's a great question. Let's try and get another. Can we do one more?
We can do one more question.
We'll see how we do. Come on up.
So like what like gives you like the inspiration to like make these books? Like how do you write them like so good?
Oh, thanks. So listen, when I was
He calls me up and says, Dave, how can I? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, so I'm like, David, you got to help me out here, man. So when I was a kid, I wasn't a huge reader. I was always out playing kickball in the street, or I was playing on my Atari, or eventually my Nintendo, but it wasn't Atari to start. And or I was watching TV, or I was playing with my friends and making up stuff. And I had action figures for Star Wars, and I was doing stuff like that. If I read a book, I liked reading, but it took a really exciting book to grab me and to hold me. And so as I grew up and I wanted to become a storyteller and I wanted to write books, I decided, well, I kind of want to write the books that kid me would read, right? The kind that would keep me engaged. So I try to write books that have cliffhanger chapters. I'm sorry. I know everybody complains to me about that, but I know you like it. I do cliffhanger chapters, I do life and death stuff, I do explosions, I do twists and turns and betrayals, because that's the kind of stuff that I love to read. So every time I write a book, I think, would kid me want to read this? And that's kind of like, so if you're a fan of my books, we have that in common. We both like the same kind of books, the kind of books that I like to write. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think that is all the time that we have. I know it ran out quick.